Hello, everybody. This is Matt Higgins, and you are watching the NyteTime podcast, episode 8. I know that we haven't been putting them out on a regular basis. I've just been shooting them when inspiration hits me. I do plan on getting them a little more regular on a schedule. Start treating it like a job, and maybe benefits will be forthcoming. Got a lot to talk about. A lot of shit going on in the news. Some of it I can make funny, some of it I can't. But it still needs to be talked about. Get the Midwest perspective, so to speak. And not from a Bible thumping religious zealot, but somebody that has their mental capacities intact. Not that I'm making fun of religious people, but they do deserve a bit of scrutiny. Okay, I'm lying. I'm going to make fun of them. I do it all the time, and I'll continue to do it. So, anyway, let's get right to the articles. Let's see. What do we got? Netanyahu, Mr. Israel himself, who's under investigation and I think going to trial for corruption, has been pushing to overhaul the justice system in his country so that it might favor him, because he wants to pack the courts with all his people. He wants to limit their version of the Supreme Court and their ability to oversee and rule on laws and cases, so that the lower courts, where Netanyahu is going to be putting his people, have more say and more control, so that, hey, wink wink, it shouldn't affect the outcome of his trials if he's guilty, but, you know, they're going to, and we all know it. He fired his defense minister for speaking out against this push to overhaul the justice system, which sounds like a dictatorship to me, but what do I know? And after that, the people started rioting more than they had been for the last 3 months. And now, Mr. Netanyahu is putting a pause on his plans to take over the country and turn it into an autocracy. Now, I don't know how long that will last, but I've long said I do not understand why we continuously hug on the nutsack of Israel, why we even care. We owe them nothing. They're turning into a far right-wing fucking cult. Not the citizens so much per se, but the government. And if the government manages to take complete control from the people, they won't be so much an ally to us in so much as they already are, and I don't fully understand it. Quite honestly, I don't care. All I know is we show them deference way too much. We send them way too much aid for whatever we think we're getting out of them. I don't care that they're in the Middle East and they're supposed to be the voice of reason. I don't give a shit. The whole Middle East, as far as I'm concerned, can take a flying fuck. We ought to just completely pull out of there and let them sort themselves out, and then whoever's left come back and tell them how it's going to be if they want to be a part. of the rest of the world with us. Israel is, they can't govern themselves. They can't even solve their own issues with Palestine. The fact that there's a religious overtone hanging over the whole thing, I don't like. It just further complicates things. I understand that they deserved, after World War II, they deserved to get some land and be left alone. And that's exactly what should have happened. We should have given them their land, let them have it, and then left them alone. Whatever happened outside of that is not our concern. As far as my thinking takes me, I don't care what happens to them after that. We spend too much time and resources trying to fix other countries and their fucking problems, and constantly being a crutch to them instead of taking care of our own country and our own problems. We are the last country on this planet that should be going around telling everybody else how to fucking do their job, or how to treat their people, run their governments. Our government system has got to be one of the most corrupt in the world. It might have started out with good intentions. It might have started out on a good foundation, the idea of it, but we have since allowed it to turn into a cesspool of crime and bribery and corruption. So, yeah, people might kill themselves trying to get here to live a better life, but the bar is set so low. I mean, these people are leaving countries, immigrants coming here to get a better life. They're coming from really, really poor conditions. So to say that we're better than everybody else is not saying much, and I think that needs to be brought up more often. We're not the greatest country in the world. We might be better than most, but I can assure you there are, and I haven't left the United States, so I'm placing this off of information I've listened to, and I have listened to information from other countries and other sources without the lens of, because I was born here, I have some kind of privilege and I'm better than everybody else. I don't believe, I was born here and I don't believe we're the greatest country. Nobody can tell me different, because we're not. My dick doesn't get hard every time I see a flag, and I don't cry every time a goddamn holiday comes by where, soldiers were killed. I feel sorry for the soldiers. I hope that they died feeling, satisfied and complacent with the fact that they died for their country. But most conflicts we send our troops into have nothing to do with our freedoms. It's always somebody else's shit that we're sending them over for, or it's our corporate interests. Our military is basically mercs, mercs for hire. As long as there's something in it for us, we'll get involved. But we're not the shining example we like to let the world believe, or we try to tell the world to believe. Like, if we really cared about human rights and wanted to police the world and help democracies, we wouldn't be fucking around with countries that we could easily go in and kick the ass of. Why aren't we going to China? Or why aren't we going to, let's say, let's just pick North Korea. North Korea is small. That is a complete shithole of a country. Why don't we go over there and fix that country? Talk about human rights violations. You think anybody enjoys living in North Korea besides the people that run North Korea? I'm guessing not. The fact that nobody's allowed to leave and nobody's allowed to voice their opinion You know, pretty much says it all. Why aren't we going over there to help people? And the answer is we don't give a fuck about people. The government doesn't give a fuck about people. They don't care about people. They care about resources. They care about land, resources, power. That's all they care about. And that's what our military is used for, is to gain access to or protect our fiscal interests or our power dynamic. Never have we went somewhere else to fight for the safety and freedom of this country. The last time that happened was when Japan hit Pearl Harbor. They hit our base, which was a colossal fuck up on Japan's part, because we went over there and did what we should have done, which was almost wipe them off the map. And that's the way it should be. I'm all for, if you're going to use military force, don't fuck around. Stop with the measured responses. If you fuck with us, we're going to go over there and we're going to, it's not going to be it shouldn't be a fight. It should be, we go over there to end it and be done with it. So, that was the last time we've been attacked. Now, you could, yes, technically we were attacked on 9/11. And to show you how much our military matters in cases like that, in guerrilla war, it doesn't. We've got the highest military budget in the world, and a bunch of ragtag group of terrorists got together and attacked our country and killed a bunch of people in one of the most ingenious ways possible. And they succeeded. 3 out of 4 planes hit their targets. I'm not saying it was a good thing. It was definitely a wake-up call. It should have given our country and our citizens and our government different ideas than what we ended up getting. If anything leans us towards getting out of the Middle East permanently, it should have been 9/11, because 9/11 was the Middle East's way of saying, hey, we don't fucking want you over in our part of the world. I'm sorry they have all the oil. I mean, that's just the way the earth formed. And if we weren't beholden to oil tycoons and corrupt government and paid for politicians, we could get rid of our need for oil, and then it wouldn't matter. We wouldn't have to rely on the Middle East for anything. Fuck them. Let them have their oil. So, anyway, I went off on a rant there. I know we were talking about Netanyahu and Israel. So Israel's protesting, Netanyahu's backtracking a little bit. I don't know how long that will last, but yeah, fuck Israel. Hopefully they manage to try that son of a bitch and put him in jail permanently and get some stability over there. Get somebody who will run the country properly and figure out their own shit, so we can stop having to intervene or even care about what goes on over there. Next article. Oklahoma lawmaker arrested, claims officers can't detain him. This asshole, Representative Dean Davis in Oklahoma City, basically got busted for public intoxication, drunk in public. Cop showed up at the bar, and he pulled the "I'm a politician, do you know who you're fucking with" card. Now, this goes to a larger problem of, we have let politicians put themselves on their own pedestals and let them believe that they're untouchable, and then let them make us believe that they're untouchable, and they're not, and they shouldn't be. And that leads into the even bigger issue with this country, with Trump. Everybody says that it's unprecedented that we would attack a former president. Well, it's also unprecedented for a political party to pick such a piece of shit to represent them and their party. So, I think I said this probably in the last podcast, but I'm sick of this whole use of the unprecedented. Because it's unprecedented, it just shouldn't happen. You know what? The only reason this country is around is because of a series of unprecedented events or actions. That's how shit changes. That's how shit progresses. That's how we move forward. Now, this motherfucker in Oklahoma City saying that he's above reproach and untouchable, that's exactly where we should start. We should start right there at the local level and tell politicians, hey, you're people hired by the citizens. Okay, you were voted into office. That's how we hired you. It's not a perfect system, but it is what it is. But if you break the laws, I don't give a fuck what position you hold in government. You are also still a citizen and subject to the same fucking rules. I don't care what privileges you think you have in that position that you want to shield you from consequences, but you don't have them. Whatever it is that makes a politician feel comfortable enough to shit on everybody and take bribes and be corrupt and talk shit and think that they're above reproach, it shouldn't. Whatever it is that makes them feel that way, it shouldn't. And citizens are part of the problem. The voters are part of the problem because we have become complacent in our society where we just focus on the immediate needs. We're totally reactionary, and we're easily led astray. We're easily made fearful of things that aren't real or aren't worth our time being scared of. Because they're not scary, we let them make us believe that they're scary. So, this douchebag, let's say his name again, Representative Dean Davis. Oklahoma State Representative Dean Davis. Hey, you're fucking guilty. You were drunk. Cops caught you. Cops maintained their cool, which is odd because I'm guessing if it had been a black person, your average black person, minority or whatever, they probably would have shot him. But they did the right thing in arresting him. And this guy should be removed from office. I'm sorry. That's just the way it should be. If you fuck up like that, you need to be removed from office. There needs to be a system in place. Hey, if that had been anybody in a private business who happened to be the face of the company, they would have been fired. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? No, I am not. You would be fired. If this guy represented a company and this happened and it hit the news, they'd fire his ass immediately. Same should be said for a politician. You don't get a fucking free pass. You don't get a second chance because you're a politician. Fuck you, and fuck you for being a politician. Okay? So, that's all I got to say on that article. Now, this next one. There was a shooting in Nashville at a school. I know this is going to be a touchy subject for everybody, and more so for you religious idiots, but this shooting happened at a school, the Covenant School in Nashville had 6 people killed, 3 kids below the age of 10, and 3 adults 60 or above. It's, I think it was a Presbyterian school. And it doesn't matter. Baptist, Christian, Catholic, Presbyterian, fucking whatever you want to call it. It's still religious and it's still horseshit. Now, it's sad that it happened. You could probably use the word tragedy here. Although, At what point do you allow these incidents to go on, and tragedy still means something? Because if every school shooting is a tragedy, then something would have been done about it by now. Something real, something tangible, something that would reduce the chances of these incidents happening ever again if they are tragedies. So either they're not tragedies or they are, and then our politicians need to step up and say, yeah, they're tragedies and we don't give a fuck because we get paid well by the NRA and gun manufacturers. And that money is worth a hell of a lot more than your child's life. Why? Because it's not the politician's child. When was the last time a politician's child was killed in a mass shooting at a school? Or in a mass shooting in general? I mean, I can't remember any. Has it happened? I don't know. Maybe we should look that up and see. What I can tell you is it either hasn't happened or it hasn't happened enough for a politician to care, because the money and power provided by the gun industry obviously outweighs anything that they're willing to do to lower the chances of some psycho getting a gun and killing a bunch of people, especially kids. How many kids have to die before the Second Amendment gets revisited and rewritten or reinterpreted for current times? I will say that it's a tragedy in Nashville, but that word is starting to lose its meaning, because the word tragedy should have an impact. It should be a catalyst for change, and it's not. So either Webster needs to change the definition of tragedy, or we gotta stop using the word and just as a country accept the fact that school killings are a part of nature, just like anything else. And it's something we're just supposed to live with, because we can't stop, take a look at the Constitution, and say to ourselves, maybe we should update this fucking thing for current times. And maybe we should overhaul the political system so that politicians are not allowed to be lobbied, they're not allowed to be bought or influenced by money or corporations. And this is what I mean by the bar being set so low. Yeah, people are killing themselves to get here, to live a better life, but there's still, the government is almost as bad. Yeah, you're better than a country where cartels run everything and influence the government. It's no different here. We have corporate cartels that run the government and get their way. Am I wrong? No. Your chances of survival here are better. Your chances of living a better life here are better, but that shouldn't be good enough. And you would think Americans would, in their star-spangled awesomeness, see that and understand that and take action. Why are we settling for good enough? Why are we settling for just better than the worst country? Why are we settling for that? We're not the greatest country. We're better, and that's it. I wonder if some immigrants look at the news and say, gosh, I want to come here for a better life for my kids, and then see that, almost once a month or better, or more, that a bunch of kids get killed by guns. I wonder if that causes them to have pause and think, well, shit, is it worth it? I don't know. I do know that it's sad. It's extremely sad that we have to live with shit like this happening. And that money rules everything. And money decides whether or not your child's life matters. Your child's life only matters to you. Definitely doesn't matter to the person you voted into office to enact laws that would protect your children. They give zero fucks. Their kids aren't going to school with your kids. So until somebody manages to get into a school where politicians' children attend and kill a bunch of them, and I'm not advocating for this, but I'm saying that it would be the catalyst. It would be probably a wake-up call. Probably. And that's assuming that these politicians still have any remnant of a soul left in their body. Because I'm actually not convinced that even if a bunch of politicians' children were killed in a mass shooting, that they would act anyways. Would they? Would they finally stand up and say, I've been wrong this whole time? Meaning, I didn't give a fuck about the issue of your kids dying until my kid until my kid died, which still means they don't give a fuck. They only give a fuck insofar as it finally touched their life personally. And that is the reason why politicians are so shitty. Okay? Most people that want to be a politician are the kind of people that shouldn't be politicians. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And Trump, I mean, I hate to keep going back to Trump because he is the best example of how horrendous a human being can be when influenced by money and greed and power. I am convinced that had his children been killed in any kind of mass shooting, he would have given zero fucks. I think if somebody broke into his kid's home now and executed them with a gun that should be illegal but isn't because of the NRA and the Second Amendment, he would say, well, that's the price of freedom. I actually believe that. Or, he would obviously blame woke, democratic, crazy, insane animals on the left. But we all know that wouldn't be the case. It's still the fact that some crazy asshole had an easier time getting a gun than he does getting prescription medication to help him live a better life. So these kids, I'm sorry they had to die because they don't deserve it. And here, this is how much you can believe me when I say this. I don't like kids. I still don't like kids. I have one. She's grown up. I loved her to death. I'll always love her. It softened my view on kids, but I still don't like them. I still don't like being around them. But they don't deserve to die. Once you are born, you deserve every protection possible. You deserve every protection possible. Don't come out with the abortion issue because until you're born, at a certain stage in your development, you're still just a mass of fucking cells, no different than a tumor or anything else. We're just waiting to see if you develop into a human or amongst, a cancer. So, but once you're born, you are helpless and you deserve to be protected. And that's where, political lines get drawn is, these pro-life motherfuckers, yeah, you're pro-life until the baby's born, and then you could give a fuck about that kid's life. Evidenced by your lack of willingness to fund properly and adequately social services, programs to help kids, make sure that they have enough food to eat, getting a good, proper education, making sure that guns aren't easily obtainable by any random asshole who wants one without a background check so that he could go and kill all these kids. Politicians give no fucks. They don't like kids either. They might like their kids, maybe, but they don't like yours, and they definitely don't give a fuck about them. So, the Nashville shooting, I would say, is a tragedy. So, next step would be, hey, politicians, what is your definition of a tragedy? And shouldn't that be a catalyst for change? Real, major, definitive change. So far it hasn't. So we still need to figure out what tragedy really means and what it means to certain people. Next article. Yeah, this one's about Alvin Bragg's investigation into Donald Trump. And this goes back to the precedence thing. I don't give a fuck if he was the former president or not. The guy was he was a shady as fuck, sketchy, narcissistic, priss, whiny bitch before he was elected. Okay? He didn't give a fuck about anybody but himself before he was elected. But he's an excellent salesman. He's an excellent salesman. And he sold an image and an ideal to Americans, enough of them, which is also a problem with this country. There are at least, 73, 74 million stupid motherfuckers who are easily gullible, who said to themselves, yeah, I guess this guy never gave a fuck about anybody in his life before, but now that he wants to be president, he suddenly cares about everybody. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He doesn't give a fuck. And he still doesn't give a fuck. There's a reason why he's pandering to you dumb motherfuckers and not to anybody else. He's not trying to reach the left. He's not trying to reach independence because he knows that we are smart enough and sane enough to tell that he's full of shit and know that he's never changed and he never will change. That's why he's only speaking to you guys. You're the dumb ones. I'm sorry. I tried to stay even keeled, or I tried to stay in the middle. I still, as of this moment, identify as an independent, but I will definitely lean with the left because they are more socially aware and socially responsible and seem to be pro-humanity. Do they have their flaws? Yes, they're not perfect, but they're better than the fucking idiots on the right. Okay? I'm willing to have educated, intelligent, proper, civil conversations with somebody across the aisle. I am. We can talk about things. But you on the right are so fucking embedded and dug in because you have beliefs. You have a belief system that you're not willing to allow criticism or inspection. Facts don't matter to you. Evidence doesn't matter to you. And that's the problem with beliefs. And that's what Trump is that's why Trump is so easily gobbled up and accepted and promoted on the right, because of religion, because of the belief systems you guys have. You don't care. Evidence doesn't change your mind. And he knows that. So anyway, sorry about that. I had to pause the video because my girlfriend got home. I wanted to say hi. So, leaving that, yeah, I'm willing to have conversations with people, but there has to be a good faith effort on their part. And as far as I can tell, there isn't. Now, that's not to say that the left does not have belief systems too, but most of us are willing to change our opinions based on evidence and facts. Like if I believe something and it's based off of information that I currently have, and then you come to me with a whole new set of facts, and when I say facts, I mean real facts, not alternative facts or shit pulled in from bizarro world that's been manipulated, I will change my mind. But so far, I just haven't heard anything. So, anyway, next story. Tornadoes hit the South recently. Up to 26 people have died. Is that a tragedy? I don't know. It did happen in the South. I've heard a lot of religious people say that 9/11 happened because we deserved it as a country, because we were too tolerant of sinners. That's your belief system, not mine. So, yeah, it's sad that, you know, a lot of people died, but whenever I see something like that happen to places and people that would gladly turn around and say, well, if it happened to people up north or a woke city or something like that, they would celebrate. So I gotta take the stance that yeah, it happened in the South. It probably needed to happen. It probably needs to happen more. There definitely needs to be an enema in some of those southern states, because you guys are statistically, you're the dumbest, you're the poorest, and yet you're the most patriotic, and you're willing to fight to stay poor and dumb under the guise of freedom, and you constantly vote against your own self-interest. So I'm going to say that my version of God sent those tornadoes down there to just remind you could be removed at any minute, and maybe instead of devoting your lives to making everybody else's life miserable because they don't believe in what you believe in, maybe you should start being proactive and pro-human and start being a little more inclusive about some of the ideas that have been coming along. The next article is about Trump again. I hate it, but he's recently visited Waco. Talk about the perfect place for Trump to go visit. The 30th anniversary. Here's what I don't understand, why this man is still relevant. You're having a political rally on the 30th anniversary of a siege of a compound full of psychos. I suppose if that's not his demographic, I don't know what is. So maybe it makes sense in that world. I suppose it does. They all fucking deserve each other, I can tell you that. Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark have struck a deal to run their 200 plus advanced fighter jets as a single fleet, creating a new headache for Russia. Now here is where I start to care about other countries, because at least they're doing something intelligent. I know Russia and Putin continue to claim that they had to invade Ukraine because they were feeling threatened by NATO. This is not true. NATO doesn't invade countries for no reason. They can sell it however they want. Putin attacked first. And if he takes Ukraine, he's still going to be bordered by NATO. There are NATO countries all around him. That's not going to change. I don't care if NATO's at his back door. they're there. They're not going away. And nobody had plans to attack him. And the fact that these other countries are now banding together to join their militaries should give him pause. It should give a person who's thinking rationally pause. Like, hey, I thought this would make things better for us, but it's really making things worse because it's driving everybody else together to stand against us. And for what? For Ukraine? Is that little country that fucking important to him? No, it's not. It's not. It's not. And I'm glad that the other countries are finally seeing this, and they're getting together. And at least a couple of them have asked to join NATO. They petitioned to join NATO, as they should. Now, don't get me wrong, NATO sometimes could be considered a non-functioning group of countries, because it's my understanding that all it takes is one country's representative to stand up and say, I don't like something, to override every other single country's vote just because one country says no. That needs to be updated and overhauled as well. When Trump said NATO was had outlived its usefulness or wasn't needed, he's right, but for the wrong reasons. He just doesn't like the idea of being part of a group where he's not fully in fucking charge. So, but there is this thing about NATO that needs to be changed. It needs to be at least dropped down to a threshold of, maybe 3/4 of the countries need to agree in order for something to get progressed through the system and get adopted. And a potential country's admission into NATO should be one of them. That should be a no-brainer. If you are a country that's part of NATO and another country wants to be involved in NATO, it only strengthens that group. But you've got places like Turkey who are holding it up because of personal, selfish reasons, like treaties with other countries who don't happen to be in NATO, or terrorist organizations, and those things are influencing their decision, and it shouldn't. But we allow that, and because of that one vote majority, the one vote that can fuck everything up, that needs to be overhauled. Who's to say Putin's going to stop at Ukraine? Why would he? If he gets away with it, why stop? It makes strategically it makes no sense. There are reports saying he's ill. He may die, or he's dying of something, and if that's the case, he definitely has incentive to just keep going through country after country after country to reunite all of the former Soviet republics, to build this empire back up before he goes, so he can be remembered. Well, he's not going to be remembered by the rest of the world for what he wants, but I guess it's important enough that the people that have been lied to in this country believe it. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. I can't tell you. I watched Chernobyl, the Lost Tapes, last night, and it almost made me cry, because the amount of misinformation and deceit and lying and cover-ups that went on when that happened is fucking horrific. And one could say that it was probably a huge catalyst as to why the Soviet Union fell apart, was because they had lied about it for so long and denied what had really happened, and sent so many of their soldiers to die to clean up that fucking mess and cover it up, and allow their citizens to live there amongst all that radiation and not tell them. It's fucking horrendous. And finally, it happened in 86, I think, and then the Soviet Union fell apart, early 90s, 90, 91. I think a lot of it was because they were finally finding out that the government was lying to them. Enough information was getting let out about the lies, and they could no longer deny it. And you had riots, and people, and the countries in Ukraine might have been the first country that petitioned for democracy, for independence, and they got it. And then after that, the dominoes just fell. Putin's no different. Putin is from that era. Former KGB. The man has no fucking soul. Why would he just stop at Ukraine? Ukraine gives him no strategic advantage in any theater of combat if that were the only country he took. So I'm glad that the Nordic countries are getting together, and hopefully that that drives other countries to have a little self-reflection and say, you know, we face mainly, I would say, 4 major enemies that everybody can agree on, and that is the Middle East, Russia, China, and North Korea. Those are the 4 biggest problem children that the planet faces. And all of them have nuclear capabilities. Russia and China are probably the only ones that have the ICBMs that are capable of reaching the United States, but the other 2 are still just as dangerous, because any of them could attack anybody at any time and cause other actions to inadvertently draw us into a war. So the sooner we deal with Russia, and this is where I disagree with a lot of people, we need, fuck just giving Ukraine weapons. We need to go over there. We need to put boots on the ground. If we're going to be a part of it, we need to be either completely involved or we need to completely back away. We either need to say to ourselves, hey, it's Ukraine, we don't give a fuck, they have no value to us. Yeah, it's a humanitarian crisis, but it's not, they're not our humans. They're Russia's humans, so we don't care, and we just back out and let them get taken over and then see what happens. Or we not only give them the weapons to defend themselves, but we give them support and we end this fucking fight. There's no point in dragging it out. There's no point in helping Ukraine piecemeal. It makes no sense. And that's another thing NATO should have been able to get involved in, but they can't because fucking every other country over there is afraid to vote against Russia. So whatever programs or solutions we put forward, they're going to get vetoed automatically by anybody, because nobody wants to admit that when it comes to war, you can't fuck around. If you don't go all out, you end up with situations like the Korean War. People say we didn't lose that war, but we didn't win it either. Why? Because we didn't fully invest. We didn't go in there and fucking kick ass like we should have. Vietnam is the prime example where we did not fully go in there and do what needed to be done. We held back and we got our asses kicked. And a lot of American soldiers died for nothing. They died for nothing. We weren't over there fighting for our freedoms. Vietnam had not attacked us. Technically, we shouldn't have even been involved over there to begin with. But we were, but we did it half-assed. And because we did it half-assed, we lost. So if you're going to send weapons to a country that's in the middle of a war, then you need to also be committed to sending troops, because it's obviously worth, you're giving away billions of dollars that we're going to have to pay for as taxpayers. Okay, that money just doesn't come out of thin fucking air. We're sending billions of dollars in weapons. For what? What's the investment? Ukraine has nothing for us. They have no natural resources that are worth us getting killed over. but we keep playing around the edges and dancing around. Russia has every right to view us as a direct enemy because we're funding one of their major enemies in this war. So we're already there in Russia's eyes, and anybody who thinks clearly, we're already there in their eyes, in their mind. So you might as well just fucking do it and get it over with. And that way we can start rebuilding the country and start focusing on other issues. Why are we sending billions of dollars to a country at war when our own country is falling apart and we can't take care of our own people? Fuck, we still have veterans from other wars that we lost or fought that are on the streets and homeless and can't get the proper care. How about we fix those people first? If we're not going to fully commit to the war in Ukraine, let's back the fuck out and let's spend that money elsewhere, like on our own people who were in wars and fought for us. No, that's too radical. On a somewhat lighter note, how cool would it be to work in a chocolate factory? How hard could your day be? You get to go make chocolate, right? In Pennsylvania, 3 people were killed and 5 were left missing when an explosion happened at a chocolate factory. Talk about a shitty day. I mean, what's the worst thing that could normally happen in a chocolate factory? You fall into that of chocolate. You can eat your way out. So that happened. That's I still don't know. They haven't given a reason for the explosion. I don't know what the hell would explode in a chocolate factory. I mean, unless there's a secret Wonka facility where they're inventing weird shit. Fizzy lifting drink, perhaps? I don't know. Another article about the Deep South getting hit by tornadoes. Don't need to talk about that again. All right, here's going to be a really touchy subject, and I understand that I am saying this as a white man from a white perspective. Now here's the article. There's video that shows police killing a black man who is unarmed, running away, who is accused of stealing sunglasses. Timothy Johnson, 37, of Washington, D.C., was fatally shot by police outside of the Tysons Corner Shopping Center in Virginia on February 22nd. The police officer in Virginia was fired this week after newly released body cam footage showed the moment in February that led to the fatal shooting of an unarmed black man accused of stealing sunglasses from a shopping mall. On Thursday, the Fairfax County Police Department held a press conference where video of the incident was shown and the announcement of the officer's dismissal was made, according to the Associated Press. The fired officer, Sergeant Wesley Shiflett, was one of 2 cops who chased 37-year-old Timothy Johnson as he fled outside of Tyson's Corner Shopping Center on February 22nd. A loss prevention officer called police just before 6:30 p.m. that day, about a possible thief at the Nordstrom store in the mall. Once police arrived, an anti-theft alarm was sounded, which is when police say Johnson fled the scene. Body cam footage shows an officer running through a retail store and then chasing Johnson into a parking garage and outside to a wooded area where officers can be heard continuously telling him to get on the ground and stop reaching. Now, I'm going to pause for a second there. It doesn't matter that they said that. Cops, I believe, wholeheartedly, and if I'm presented with evidence to the contrary, I'll believe it. But I think cops are taught to say that regardless of whether or not a suspect is reaching, just so that they can cover their own ass when they almost always shoot, because they always overreact when they're under stress. And this may not be the fault of the cops. I don't know. There definitely needs to be a psych eval that's updated and more appropriate and more thorough, and definitely more firearms training and more law training and more real life training before they're allowed to actually pull their service revolver. But yeah, don't move your hands, stop reaching. I think that's just standard cover for a cop, so he can say, well, I thought he was doing that and that's why I pulled the trigger. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but I'm probably not. So they're continuously telling him to get on the ground and stop reaching. Moments later, several shots can be heard in the video, but it's uncertain where Johnson was in the frame. Johnson, who had been struck in the chest, was treated at the scene before being taken to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. Both officers fired their guns, but they believe only Shiflett's bullet was the one that killed Johnson. The other officer, James Sadler, will be on restricted duty as the criminal and administrative investigation continues. An attorney for Shiflett, the cop who supposedly fired the killing bullet, told the AP that he plans to file for an appeal for Shiflett's dismissal and hopes he will be exonerated, saying his client used reasonable force because Shiflett claimed it looked as though Johnson was reaching for a gun. You have to make a split-second decision, and it's a life-or-death split-second decision, Kirshner said. And this is what I mean. The guy was unarmed. The video evidence shows him being executed, and yet they're still going to defend him and say that it was a split-second life decision, and he yelled, "Stop reaching," so that's going to be his cover. Police, I believe, are like politicians. They should be hired and fired based on their performance. And if you fuck up that bad, where you kill somebody that doesn't deserve to die, you should probably, at the very least, lose your job. And then you should probably serve time. I don't think that's unreasonable. How many cops get called to situations where they're told there's suspects who are suffering from whatever mental illness, they're unarmed, or they're armed with something that is completely innocuous or not an immediate threat to the officer or anybody else, and their almost always solution is to just shoot. I've read articles where cops are called to possible suicide situations, and in order to keep the person from killing themselves, they shoot and kill them. Okay, now, am I in the wrong here in thinking that that's incredibly fucking ignorant? He had a gun. He was going to shoot himself, so we shot him. Okay. I guess because America? I don't know. So these cops executed this guy in here over sunglasses. The guy it wasn't an armed robbery. He had 2 pairs of sunglasses on him when they shot and killed him. And that's enough for an execution. If we're going to call that okay, then there's definitely a bunch of people who are on death row and who are in prison who should be executed immediately. If we're going to allow the cops to do it on the street, we should go ahead and thin out the prison population and fucking go all out. Quit half-assing things. If we're going to allow cops to claim immunity because they feel their life was in danger, then we should go ahead and just kill all the violent criminals in prison too. No half measures. Let's go all out, or let's hold the fucking police responsible and accountable like any other normal system should, and give them pause that maybe not everything requires a bullet to be solved because you don't want to do paperwork or you don't want to put in the time or effort to talk somebody down from a situation that they're struggling in. Or maybe this guy who stole 2 pairs of sunglasses, and they knew who they were chasing. Maybe they say, yeah, you got us this time. And you don't pull your gun. I don't think that's too much to ask. Or at least provide more officers with more less lethal ammunition, maybe. I don't understand why that's not a real thing happening everywhere. I don't think it's that outrageous to think that we can't come up with where we are in society and technology. We can't come up with a way to incapacitate an individual without fucking killing them. I don't think that's too unreasonable. Now, the flip side of that, and this is where being a white person is a hindrance. I'm just speaking from a logical viewpoint and position that maybe you should stop stealing shit. I don't care how poor you are. If you're stealing shit, you have made the decision that your life isn't as important as what you are stealing. I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but it is just fact. And if you're a minority and you steal, you gotta know that you have just signed your own death warrant, because you know cops have itchy trigger fingers and they couldn't succeed at anything else in life, and this is their chance to take it out on the world. Don't put yourself in that position. Figure out a better way. And I understand that a better way is extremely hard to come by because of our corrupt political system and the pro-lifers' inability to actually live up to the pro-life status and adequately provide for their citizens the proper health care and welfare that's needed in this capitalist fuck society. But stealing sunglasses, you had to know as a black man that wasn't going to end well. I don't know what that person was facing. I know it doesn't warrant an execution. It should never have happened. But you've also got to know the score. You've got to know what's going on around you. You have to be self-aware. There have been black people killed for a lot less than stealing sunglasses. And you know that. There's been riots about it. We need to find a better way. And I hate having to say that. I know nobody wants to say it out loud, especially if you're not black. And full disclosure, I have no problems with minorities. I'm more afraid of white people than I am of minorities. Let me put that out there because that is fact. I am more scared of these crazy white fucks that are around me and in this country than I am of any minority. And I think that's a very intelligent position to take. And I'm not one of those people that says, oh my God, white people are going to be in the minority in the next 20, 30 years. Who gives a fuck? Who cares who's in the minority? First of all, even if white people do become the minority, it's still white people, old white people, who have most of the wealth anyways. So we could turn into a situation like South Africa. It wouldn't matter. Black people minorities could take over 80% of this country. They still can't get at the wealth. And I'm not talking about being rich, I'm talking about wealth. This has been discussed before by other people. Ownership of land, ownership of patents and resources. That's just not going to just change hands because white people are suddenly in the minority in the population. And secondly, why are you so worried about that happening? Are you afraid that you might get treated like a minority gets treated? You hypocritical, two-faced fucks. There should be no fear of white people becoming the minority unless there was something wrong with being a minority. And what could that problem be? I don't know. Could it be the problems be caused by people who are in the majority? I think so. What do you think? Yeah. Uh-huh. So, anyway. So I'm not trying to, I don't want to, please don't come at me with the, well, there's a white man's opinion. Look, it's fact. It's just the way it is. If you're a minority and you do something illegal, chances are you're going to get killed for it. It's not the way it should be. I know it's not. I know the system's fucked up. But it is what it is. I can't help it. It would take all of us getting together and putting the right people into politics, into political positions, to make laws, to hold people accountable. But we're not willing to do it. At least not yet. For whatever reason. So, I don't know what the answer is. But I do know that everybody doing just what they normally do, people stealing shit and cops killing them for it, it's not sustainable. At some point, the wrong person is going to get killed, or enough of the wrong people are going to get killed, and then it's just going to blow up in everybody's faces. I don't know what it is. I thought George Floyd, that might have been a pretty good catalyst for change, but it hasn't been so far. I think it was the start of a movement, but some people hijack movements and turn them illegitimate because of overreaction or illegal action. Like the people that were protesting George Floyd's death, the protests were overshadowed by people that saw that as an opportunity to burn shit down, blow shit up, and steal shit. That wasn't what that movement was about. I understood it, but that's not what it was about. But that's what the right, the Republicans, and all the gun nuts were able to latch onto, because the few idiots that took over gave them cannon fodder. They gave them a reason to minimize and downplay and critique the protests. The Black Lives Matter protest isn't about blowing shit up and burning down and stealing shit. But that's what Republicans are very, very good at, is taking the shit that we do on the left and turning it against us as a weapon. They're very good at it. And sorry to say, the Democrats and the progressives are very good at giving the right ammunition to beat the shit out of us with. So until we fix, it's one of those, until we fix our problems, we can't fix their problems. I think that's going to be all for this week. I'll leave you with a couple of things. I don't believe, and I've said this before, that things are going to get better without a massive change in people's ability to critically think about situations. When we talk about our political system being one of our biggest enemies to progress, part of that is because of a huge majority of the population, well, not a huge majority, but a huge chunk of the population are unwilling to do what needs to be done to protect their own self-interests. They need to stop voting for people that make them afraid of shit that doesn't matter, that isn't important, or that isn't worthy of being afraid of. Okay? Stop letting people tell you that gay people are going to turn your kids gay. Stop believing people when they tell you that having a drag queen within 100 yards of a child is going to turn that child gay. Stop letting people make you afraid of a possible person who's transitioning or who has transitioned. That if they get near your kid, they're going to indoctrinate them and make them turn they're going to make them change, they're going to want to make them change their own sexual identity. That's not how it fucking works. Okay? It's not how it works. Stop being afraid of that. It's not worth it. You're letting people make you afraid of that so that you'll vote for them so that they can stay in power. And those people in power don't give a fuck about you once they get there. It's evident by the entire South being last in education, last in wealth, first in welfare recipients, most likely to turn to porn to get off. It's not a coincidence that the South is also the most religious. Strip away religion, and what argument do you have against gay people? None. 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 If a gay person hits on you and you don't like it, give them the same response you would give if somebody of the same or somebody of the opposite sex of you hit on you and you didn't like them. I'm not interested. That's where it'll end. That's where it'll end. And being gay doesn't mean you're a pedophile. It doesn't. I've had gay coworkers. I have gay friends. Doesn't matter. They're not pedophiles just because they're gay. It means they don't like the same type of sex you like. And that's where it ends. Please stop arguing about stupid shit and letting people make you afraid of things that aren't worthy of your fear. You should be afraid of this country's government becoming an autocracy and or falling apart and failing you completely. And we are well on our way to that happening. There are more things that would bring us together than you can possibly imagine if we stopped and took the time to quit being afraid of shit that doesn't matter and start being afraid of the things that do matter and that are happening. I'll tell you what's not happening. Gay people making other straight people gay. What is happening? Politicians being lobbied and paid off to vote down gun laws that would protect your children from mass shooters. Do you see the difference? This has been episode 8 of the NyteTime podcast with Matt Higgins. I appreciate you listening. Everybody, have a good week.